What's up, fuck buddies?
Hi, everybody. How you doing, Jen Ponton?
I'm doing so good, Lillian Bustle. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm sitting right next to you.
I know, it's ridiculous. It seems unreal. She says, not touching her face because, like, I don't even want to touch my own face.
Because we don't touch
right
faces anymore.
That needs so much more consent. And we have with us today on this episode of All the Fucks an incredible person who is, I like that she refers to herself as a sex edutainer, and is a storyteller and so much more. Dirty Lola is in the house.
Hi. How are y'all?
So excited to talk to you.
Excited to do this. This is great.
The thing that actually made me not remember you, but the thing that where I was like, oh my God, we absolutely need to talk to her was a story that you told recently with, I believe it was Bawdy.
Yes.
Yeah. About like the dearth of like human contact during all of the pandemic stuff.
Yeah.
And it's
my last fuck before the end of the world.
Yes. Last fuck before the end of the world.
Wow. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It's great. I will definitely send you the link. But we met because you were doing storytelling at a burlesque show.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. That was the first time we met. I forget which show it was.
It was at a bar that I never did a show at again. And the bathroom was very small to change in, but it had a nice stage. It was cute.
Yeah, it was cute. It was very cute.
There was somebody doing things with needles sticking that I hadn't seen before, but not the person who I know who does it now.
This is a normal burlesque conversation with you.
This is a Tuesday.
Yeah. It's just, we're always like, don't know where it was. In a small room together.
But your magnetism, not just on stage and off, I just love your energy so much. And you're so smart and fun and kind. And like, such a perfect fit for this situation.
Undoubtedly, if we could all redo our own sex ed, we would do it with you.
Oh yeah.
Hey!
I would love that, right? It's like, I'm still learning things. There's so much, and also things change, like so much changes. It's not like history stays the same, but like science changes, and sex ed is science, and new things and new discoveries about bodies, and so that changes stuff and how we understand things. And I just wish people understood that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. Socioeconomics of sex.
Mm-hmm.
So are you from the New York area originally?
So I grew up, I was born and raised in South Carolina till I was about 13. I moved to New York the summer before my 14th birthday because I started 10th grade here.
Okay.
So I was in South Carolina till 9th grade and then I moved to New York.
That's a change at a very formative part of life.
Yeah, but I was a weird kid, and so moving to New York saved my life. Because I was the weird kid. It was like, oh God. Now I guess we'd call it frenemies. But I just remember like needing to get away, like feeling like, oh my God, nobody likes me, and then coming back to visit and people being like, oh, I've missed you, and I'm like, what?
You did not miss me.
Or maybe they did, and maybe people, I don't think a lot of kids and teens understand how deeply some of their kidding around can cut, and how and for a lot of kids, especially if they're having a hard home life, when school is hard and home is hard, it's just a lot for kids. And that was me. I had like a really hard home life, and then I had like school was just like a mess, and I was that kid. I was the kid, like whenever I watched cringy things, I was the kid who did those cringy things. Like I was that nerd who always thought something was a good idea and then it just wasn't.
Oh, you're in good company.
Yeah.
That's like definitely
outfits, us. Hairstyles, and you're like, yeah, I look great. And then you're like, oh
no.
Oh my God, the shit I did. I remember specifically specifically, I took a width of elastic, just like regular elastic, and I had a bedazzler thing, like the old school one where you could chunk punch the rhinestones into it.
Yeah.
And I was inspired from a pair of shoes from a brand that people thought were fancy at the time. I can't even think of what it was. And it had like little fleur-de-lis all over it. Anyway, I tricked out this weird piece of elastic. I dangled little pony beads from it. And then I wore it like a quarter of the way up my calf. And this was like, I was like, I'm a trendsetter.
Calf jewelry.
And I remember this boy that I had such a long-term crush on, Michael Smith. He looked at me and he was like, oh God, why? Why do you have to do stuff like this? And I was like, what do you mean stuff like this? And he was like, you know what I mean.
Like, what? Yeah, I mean, I was a little black girl in South Carolina who was very into grunge. So I was wearing flannel, and I loved my grandma really got me into thrift stores, and I still love a thrift store, but you know, you're not supposed to like thrift stores when you're a teenager.
Right.
And like, that's where I got all of my clothing. Like but I didn't care. Like, I liked it. So I would go look for like men's shirts from the 50s and old flannel shirts. And
that
like,
was when thrift stores were still reliably good.
Right. When you could still find like good, like shirts and sweaters and things. And I just was feeling myself until you get to school and everybody's like, why do you dress like this?
No.
Do you hear the dogs barking?
Oh, no.
Mm-mm. Okay, nope. Good. Great.
You'd be shocked. We did an interview with Francesca Leah Block, who had both landscapers and at least two small dogs going ballistic in the background. And when I did the audio, it really was not a big deal at all.
It wasn't.
Like, you hear a little bit here and there, but you don't have to worry.
I love it. Yeah. But yeah, I was that kid, and I would do weird things with my hair, and I dyed my hair with Kool-Aid, and you know, all kinds of stuff like that. And so it was just, yeah, I was that, but I never stopped. That was the thing, right? You would think that one cringy moment, you would not do it again, but I just kept doing things because I just didn't also, I mean, I cared about, I don't know, part of me cared about, I wanted to be cool, but I didn't care if I was like everybody else.
Yeah,
right.
Like, I think I wanted the version of cool in my head.
Yes.
And what I saw in 17 magazine. And I really didn't care if that translated in school, but I wasn't even pulling it off right for my own mind or 17 magazine.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, bless.
But New York, you can be that kid, right? Like, you can come to New York and be weird as fuck, and you're not even the weirdest kid. So it was a savior moving to New York, because
That's amazing.
Yeah, you meet other people and you're like, I'm pretty normal.
Right. What's your family like? Do you have any siblings?
I'm the oldest of three, and we're all 4 years apart, and so I'm really close with my sister. Our brother, we go in and out of being close with. He's a little bit crazy, so it's like he's like decides whether or not he likes us. It's one of those things. Sure. But it's so weird because they're adults now, that like they're adults. Like, my sister's on her second kid, and I'm always like, man, you're not a little baby no more, huh? I'm like, you have a baby and you're only 4 years old. And forever that always felt like I was so much older, but 4 years older isn't that much older. And so yeah. And then it was always just us and our mom, and we have like some extended family, but they're in South Carolina, and I haven't really talked to none. Like, our cousins we're in touch with like on Facebook, but the aunts and uncles not really. And like, once my grandma and the one uncle who I like loved, I call my big gay uncle, when they both passed away, that was kind of it for extended family that I really spoke to. And so I have a tiny blood family, but I have a large chosen family. So
definitely. Yeah. What brought your mom to the city then?
Oh man. I think I had an aunt who was already living in New York, and she came back with, I don't know, just like, your life could be so much better, because this was in the 90s, like the early 90s. So late 80s, early 90s. And things were a lot different. It was a lot easier to come to New York and get started, and like you could find a really stupid cheap place to live, and it was easier to like go back to school if you were a single mom. Like there were a lot more programs, because there's none of that stuff in the South. Like there's not programs trying to help people do better in life, except for like a GED program. That was like the only thing. So she really was like, you can come here, there you'll be able to get like housing, you can go back to college, like you can go to college. And I think that was the pull from my mom. And then I just was like, I do not want to go, because I was starting middle school when they left. It was like they left right at the beginning of the school year of my 6th grade year. And I was just a no. I did not want to go. I just wasn't ready to be away. Like I think my 5th grade, I was still very attached, because elementary is when you have a lot of friends, and middle school's kind of where you get a little bit. I guess. Well, and I say friends, I don't know if I had. I mean, there were like kids that I liked. Sure, I don't know if they saw me as a friend.
Pity in Lillian's voice.
Jen knows how lonely she was as a child. There's like,
and I had started making some friends that I was just like, I don't want to lose these. Like, I've been waiting all my life to have friends.
Oh God.
Yeah. And then so she left like right when I started 6th grade. So that was rough. And the trauma of like basically your whole family, because they're the people, moving, and it was really hard. And then my grandma was like, guess what? We're moving anyway. We're moving deeper into the South. So I went from living in like the suburbs of the South to like the backwoods of the South with like the high school and the elementary school are linked together by a hallway. And there's like a two gas stations and a pharmacy. And the drugstore, the Piggly Wiggly, is downstairs from the True Value Hardware.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and we lived in a trailer alongside a highway that it was a big trucking route. So that I went from like, I thought I was going to be able to stay here with my friends, or this new, like this life, to being moved to the boonies. And that's where it got worse. Like that's where it was just, I was so misunderstood. Like kids in the boonies. They were like, are you a witch? I'm like, why? They're like, you wear these symbols. I'm like, it's a peace symbol and a yin yang. What's wrong with y'all? Like,
whoa.
What?
But also, you're not a witch.
Right.
Right. Well, back then I was just like, y'all are dumb. Like,
right, of course.
Yeah. Have you never been into a Claire's? Like,
that's what in my mind, I'm like, it's not even like I got this from a shop. It literally was a necklace from Claire's that I wore all the time.
Right, of course.
That was back in the day. So stuff like that. So it didn't matter. Like I just didn't fall in line with them. And I was also really smart, but I had flunked out my last year of middle school because of all this stuff, and nobody was really paying attention. And then so they put me in like not smart kid classes, like really like, but I was smart. I'm smart, and I was very smart, and like all the teachers were like, what? Like in the English class, I was like, oh yeah, I read this like 2 years ago. Y'all just reading this now? And a guidance counselor, bless him, was like, why are you in these classes? What happened? And I was like, I don't know. I just didn't do well. And he let me take a test, and I ended up in all the honors classes. Like it was one adult paying attention, like changed it.
Yes,
absolutely. One adult saying, nobody comes into these classes making straight A's. Like these are like the dumb kid classes. But they put me in them because I had like F's almost across the board. But nobody said, oh, her mom left and her siblings are gone, and then they moved. Nobody was paying attention to that.
Right.
So that changed everything. Yeah.
Especially then. Nobody cared about kids then.
Oh no.
Nobody did. They were just kind of like, oh, like nobody was going, oh, what could possibly make you go from being a good student to like a really bad student?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. It was just, this kid's lost cause.
Yeah.
Well,
right. Yeah. Or this is just where we put you, and where you end up.
Yeah. Where you end up. Yeah. I I definitely, I was diagnosed with ADHD in my 30s, and I and I already forgot the other thing I was going to say because I have ADHD. Cool. I'm pretty sure I have dyscalculia, which is like dyslexia for numbers, because I understand geometry and I understand shapes and I understand measuring things, but I just scoot numbers all around. And going back, like anyone with a rudimentary concept of what that is must have been able to look at my work and been like, oh, she gets the concept, but why are these numbers backwards?
Right. They don't pay teachers enough.
Well, that's true.
They don't. I mean, and back in the day, like if you had a kid who had ADHD, they were giving them Ritalin. And like, so we had kids who go in the middle of the day to get Ritalin from the nurse, and they would be passing out because they couldn't stay awake because they'd have like this moment of sleep. And then so they would just have like this don't bother them. And then some teachers wouldn't listen. And so they would end up fighting with these kids who were on like this intense medication. And I just remember like I feel so bad for all the kids, and it was usually boys who got labeled as problem kids, who were put on all this hardcore meds, who nobody paid attention to, and who everybody thought that they were just acting up. And now we know, like, no.
Oh, their chemistry was all messed up.
Right. Yeah. And you're feeding them Ritalin, like bulldoze Ritalin.
I didn't know Ritalin was a depressant.
Right. I don't think anybody knew it was a depressant. They were just giving it to people and giving it to kids. Yep. Like I had 2 kids in my class. I had a kid who had severe epilepsy. So we all learned about epilepsy because we had to, because if something happened to her and there weren't teachers around, we had to know what to do. And we had like another kid who was on Ritalin, and there was somebody else, I forgot what he was on. But in the 80s, man, so many kids were on things, but they were giving you like full dose grown-up medication and just sending you to school.
Yeah. Right. Not to mention that ADHD was like presents I'm taking on your accents, presents so differently in women and girls than it does in men and boys. And so I feel like the counterbalance to that for women is amphetamines, whereas boys were never ever put on things like Adderall.
Right. They weren't given that. Yeah. Right. And we were also, if you were fat, your parents were giving you amphetamines, because I sure as fuck was on Dexatrin at some point.
Oh,
my mom
God.
Was like, remember that shit? Like you could just get it.
Oh yeah, just get it at health food stores.
Yeah.
Or a drugstore even, like you would
They had commercials for it. Dexatrim. And they had the little colorful beads in the I remember it so vividly because my mom would take them and give them to me.
Wow.
And then it's like, why are you acting like this? You gave me caffeine, woman.
I'm in honors classes now.
I know, yeah. Well, now we know, because I'm not diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure that I have something like a touch. I think we all do to a certain level, but definitely the friends who have it, I'm like, oh, so you're not supposed to be like this.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Oh, is this why when I take drugs, I can do everything?
Yeah, exactly.
For real.
1,000%.
Was your mom fat also? Like was she a thin person who was scared of your size?
No, she had a belly. Like she had kids. My mom had me when she gave birth when she turned 17. Like she had turned 17 and then she gave birth to me. And then 4 years later, she had my sister. So like she had like a pregnancy belly, like you get the extra flab and stuff. And it's your body. Like I would never say, she was like, I wouldn't even say she was a small fat. I think growing up, she was in like a size 8 to 10, right. She never veered into like the 16s, 18s. And I was a fat kid, but I also have like that body type. And growing up in the South, and you have a parent who makes you eat everything on your plate and won't let you not eat everything on your plate. I'm like, my sister is the opposite. My sister has always been very small and petite and like could eat what she wanted to eat and stay that way. And that was not me. even as a kid. And also like we all learn, like you get fatter because when you're getting ready to go through a growth spurt, because your body stretches you out.
You grow out
and
then up.
Right, you grow out and up. So I wouldn't even say I was a fat kid. I was a chubby kid.
Yeah,
and I grew. It was other things. Like, it wasn't that I was fat. Like, I was wearing a C cup in the 4th grade. Like, I had titties. Right.
So
like
early.
I was already. I was like a small C. Like, I was wearing and I was wearing an size 8 shoe in like the 3rd, 4th grade. Like, I wear a 10 now, and I prayed for my feet to stop growing, because once I surpassed my mom, it was hard to find shoes. Like, I was in a 9 and in middle school and high school, and I hit a 10. Like, my feet finally stopped growing like my junior year of high school. So actually no, because now I'm like a 10 and a half, or a 10 wide, or an 11. Like, it depends on the shoe. But
Are you continuing to get taller?
I hope not. I need my feet, and I'm like, I'm not even pregnant. Stop getting bigger. It's not like. But yeah, like, so I think I just had that kind of body. Like, I don't even know. Like, now I look back and I'm like, I wasn't fat. I just wasn't thin.
Right.
And I had a lot of hormone shit going, because all the milk. We were a milk family, and
so were we.
And milk. Yeah. Which, if you have a certain body type, like we all have different dads. So, like, I don't know my dad, but I'm sure there's some big bootied women on that side of the family who have short torsos. Like, I have an apple. I'm like a weird. My sister's like, you're like an apple hourglass. I'm like, that don't make no damn sense. She's like, no, but you've got. It does, and I'm like, it doesn't. She's like, you have hips, but you get everything in your middle. I'm like, yeah. I have a very short torso. I don't have a
so short. I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. Like, and I come from thin parents. It's because they were chain smokers. Thin drinker parents. And they didn't eat ever. And I could not figure out like where fatness was in my line genetically. And finally, some years ago, I saw a picture of my dad's grandmother, and she's stout and she's got a rack the size of Texas. And I was like, that's her. Vinona.
Vinona. And I know
that's
one day when I decide to find my other side of my family, I'll be like, oh, hi, everyone.
Yeah. Do you want to know where her full name was? Vinona Dupuy. She was puritanical and very severe. And from what I understand, my father and aunt absolutely loathed her.
Oh, no.
She was my grandmother's mom, and she was no one's grandma. She was like grandmother. And when grandmother came, like, you were fucking petrified of her. That's my great grandmother.
Wow.
And that's whose body I have. Apparently.
I mean, and that's the thing, right? We grow up not like knowing, like being told you're fat. And now I'm like, my mom called me fat because my sister was thin, and she doesn't understand genetics. It's like, we don't even have the same dads, lady. Like, we're not the same. We're not even from all of the same genes. You can't compare us.
Yeah.
And she had her own fat phobic, like, she worked out a lot, right? Like, she did. I remember her cutting out all the workouts and had like little booklets with workouts, and always had Dexatrim in the house, and always, and would and like wouldn't let us eat candy, like no candy, no soda, but she would eat it, and like, so it would be in the house. But we couldn't touch it. But then would make me eat like a full plate of like Southern food. So like rice and gravy, or cube steak, fried steak with like gravy. That was like normal food for us, pork chops.
Oh,
and she would give me like an adult plate. Like it wasn't like I got like a little, no, she would make me like a plate for a lady and would go, eat it. You have to eat it. And then they're all like, well, why are you fat? You give me white bread sandwiches.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. My mom, when she did sandwiches, do you remember Buddig as the brand of of cold cuts. It's the kind that comes in the pouch and it's really thin, but the edge tastes like it's made out of Scotch tape or something. Yes. And she would like make a white bread sandwich and with like a very thick layer of mayonnaise and then like one piece of that on it. And I would have to crunch my potato chips up and put them on the sandwich so that I could eat it because it was so gross to me. And like, I loved vegetables. I would have rather just had like, I mean, you can't send your child to school with a box full of broccoli. Like that is.
But still, give me something.
Can you imagine bringing a frozen bag of veg all and bringing it to the cafeteria lady and being like, can you just
excuse me,
warm this up? And what did she used to put on it?
What?
Your mom? What did she put on the veg all?
Oh, my mom. Do you know what veg all is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
put that on your sandwich?
No. She would mix that with mayonnaise and dill, and that would be like a side salad.
Oh,
this is unfortunate news for Lola.
Yeah, her like secret recipe thing was to take regular like Manchu ramen and boil like 5 packets of it at once so that we would have extra left over. And then when she served it, she would serve it with a slab of Velveeta at the bottom of the bowl so that it would become like a cream soup. And again, yeah, if I didn't eat the whole thing, she would be like, "You're ungrateful." Like, I don't. Am I fat or ungrateful?
Yeah, we couldn't get up from the table. Like you had to stay there. Like my sister once slept at the table because she wasn't allowed to leave. So that's how my mom was, around food. And you couldn't ask for less. Like we didn't get to decide how we ate at all. And I remember her taking me to a dietitian. And the dietitian's like, what do you eat? And I just looked at my mom and she's like, tell him. And I'm like, you act like I don't know what I like because I don't get to make decisions.
Yeah.
I don't like anything you give me.
Right.
Like, I don't know what's out there. And he's like, well, what do you eat? And I'm like, or I love saltines. Like I would eat a sleeve of saltines and they would let me.
Yep. Same.
Like a whole sleeve of saltines. But that was like my chips. And my popcorn. And oh my God, you remember potted meat?
Oh, yes.
Like, my grandma come home from school, potted meat on white bread with a piece of like iceberg lettuce. And she would cut it in squares.
A Southern thing?
I think it's a poor people thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a poor people thing. They sell it in New York. Like you can find potted meat. It's like deviled ham.
It's right next to right next to the Vienna sausages.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right.
It's kind of like blended Viennas.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So it has like the consistency of pate.
It's like pate. And it's really salty. And like my grandma to be fancy would put it on crackers sometimes. And like a black olive, because I liked black olives as a kid. So she'd do
black
that.
Olives.
That is fancy. That is fancy.
Yeah. But all of these foods are not, I mean, they're going to make you carry like a lot of the salt.
Right. Yeah. Right. You hold a lot of water. You're not getting the nutrients that like we know we need. And that definitely, if you also find that you have like allergies and stuff, like I am gluten intolerant. And I have learned so much over the last couple of years of how like flour didn't used to be like this.
Right.
And it's not in like Europe and wherever else they use flour. It's just like fucking from the ground. And whatever we do here in this cesspool is so dreadful that it makes people have like constant diarrhea.
We fuck it up. We fuck up people's, I mean,
everything.
It's a sad thing. And then I was talking to friends last night about the few times that I've been thin. And I was like, once I had a very severe, eating disorder that no one ever noticed. And just because nobody paid attention to me, even as a teenager. And so I could go through I could purge. I purged all the time. I purged, like we go out to eat and I go purge. We're like, I have to pee. Persian, wash hands, go like a thing. And that was a thin time. And then the second time was I was older and I was working out like a maniac. Like I'd wake up, walk to the gym, work out for a half hour, walk home, get ready for work. And I had workout equipment in my desk at work and I would like do weights while I was like at work and typing or on the phone or crab walk to do that. Nice. And then leave work, go to the gym, work out, come home, eat dinner, go for a walk around the neighborhood. And I lost so much weight. It's not attainable. It's not okay.
No, definitely not. No. So what pulled you out? Like, you know, the general sensation of eating disorders and exercise, you know, punitive exercise is like, it never really goes away. Like you always have it. So what pulled you from that and pulled you into a place of recovery?
I'm about to be real, like, show my age, but Tracy Gold came out about her eating disorder. And so she, you know, from Growing Pains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she made like a bunch of TV shows, like she made movies and she was talking about it. And hearing her talk about the way it damaged her body really got me on a point where I would like really think, because no, I never got treatment because nobody ever knew. Like my family to this day, if they ever hear that, they'd be like, what?
Sure. Yeah, right.
But I think knowing like all the things like, oh, it'll ruin your teeth, and that eventually, which is the way I understand it, it's probably why like my body really is the way it is now. It's because it fucks up everything.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get fatter, and you're gonna probably have a harder time losing weight because you fucked up your hormones at such a formative age. But I think knowing that stuff started getting me in the mode of like, I shouldn't be doing this. And then honestly moving in with a partner, like I met the person who became my husband and now is my ex-husband. We met when I was 19, but we moved in together when I was like 20 and a half.
Right.
And so living with a person who would go, it's because somebody noticed. He was like, are you telling me?
You're accountable.
Right. Well, and I'd go, no. And he's like, yeah, you're throwing up. And I'm like, so I wouldn't be able to hide it. It got harder to hide it. It got harder to do that. And then he was like, if you feel like you want, like, we can do you want to go to the gym? Like, do you want to do, like, is this a thing? Like, do you want to do something? Or is it a diet thing? Like, what do you need to do? Do you want help with this? And I think the shame of being caught pushed me into not doing it as much. But then the working out started being a thing, because then everybody's like, oh yeah, you're supposed to work out. And then I got tired. That became
it's so unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. And also just like as I got busier with work and moving into things, it just got to the point where it got hard to work out beyond like a half an hour a day,
right?
Or an hour a day. And then I think I just realized how exhausting it was to try to be thin. And that's not how my body's supposed to be. Right. And like my body's, you know, right now I know like I have a little beginnings of health things, and my doctor's like, listen, I'm not telling you have to be thin. She's like, but let's go down like 20 pounds. She's like, you're 40 and like you're gonna keep climbing and you don't want to be 60 and I'm like, girl, I hear you. You're right. But I like that she's like, let's just do a small goal. I'm not telling you to try to fit into a size 10, and I'm not telling you to have like a crazy goal weight. She's like, just get somewhere where it'll help your numbers. I'm like, okay.
That's pretty fat lib for a doctor.
Yeah, really.
I mean, I hate that the scale or the bar is so stupid low about it, but that is so much better than anybody else. And what I also experience is that for a fat body, something like 20 pounds can be very unconscious.
Yeah. You won't, I mean, I know what I'm like, my face will look slightly thinner.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
And I'll be able to sit down in certain pants that I wasn't.
Right. Yeah. It really is. It's a drop in the bucket.
It's not a big thing. But I think also what happened was I realized like I was not happy. Like I was not happy trying to be thin. There was crying. There was passing out because of low blood pressure or low sugar. There was like literally crying because I forgot to work out, or crying because I was hungry and didn't want to eat. And I look back and I'm like, I will eat this fucking Reese's because you know what? A bitch is happy.
She's happy.
Like, well, because I feel, and like, yeah, like I look in the mirror and I always tell people like, I hate saying you have to love your body because I think that's going to be too hard for a lot of people, but I'm just not mean to my body anymore. I'm not mean. I will not, I'm like you, I can't say I hate it, and I can't say that it's ugly, I have to be neutral about it. And I could just be like, maybe we don't talk about you today.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's
Or
a
maybe
really great entry
yeah.
point for so many people. And it's what we should strive to do on our hard days. Like, it doesn't always have to be, especially because of the very real conversation that, like, no amount of us being like, yay, I'm so pretty is going to change the structural enormous inequities that, you know, actually put us in harm's way.
It
And
doesn't matter how
actually-
much I like myself if I'm still not going to get hired for the same job as
Right,
somebody thinner.
Right. Exactly.
I like myself so much. Like
so
that's
much. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. And I think it goes a long way to at least getting you to a place. Like, I think I've hit a place where when somebody calls me fat, I laugh because I'm just like, thanks for observing. Like, what?
Right.
Duh. Like,
Hot take, bro.
And you've got brown hair. Like, what the fuck? Like, okay. And it's not a bad word to me anymore. And I mean, and also, like, I don't mind being fat. What I mind is, like, I don't have any core strength. Like, and
well,
wish
yes.
And
like,
what did you say? Sorry.
Core strength.
Oh,
my upper body strength is shit. That's what I want to fix. Like,
Yeah.
I will talk poorly about my strength. I'm always like, bitch, you are not going to survive the apocalypse.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can't lift shit. Like that.
Do you know Roz Mays? Is that
Yes.
Roz's last name?
yeah.
Yes,
God,
I love Roz.
she is so incredible. She's
love
so
Roz.
incredible. Like, I swear to God, if I ever needed to do like an action movie or needed to like bulk up for something, I'd go to Roz and be like, make my arms do arm things. Because they can't.
Make them but that, yeah. Well, and those are the things that I want for myself now. It's like, I want portions because I also have learned so much about your hips and knees, and that it's not because I'm fucking fat.
Mm-mm.
Like, that it's because I sit all day at a desk at work, and that has and like, especially during the pandemic, I stopped having my daily subway workout of getting on the train. That's a goddamn workout. I lost my stair legs. I lost I started having hip and knee problems. And I'm like, any doctor will usually be like, oh, it's because you're fat. And I'm like, no, it's because I'm sitting all the time and I'm not walking and using those muscles and everything's atrophying.
Right.
Right.
Like, can you help me with that? Like,
Right.
because we could work out and still be fat. Like, I'm not going to be thin. I'm not going to be. It's not, you know, but I would love to be stronger.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
For sure.
Yeah, same here.
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to take us down a little bit of a road because it is 3:23 and we do have another call at 4, but like we can
definitely go up to like 3:55 for sure. And we want to know so much.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Oh, I'm just curious as to how you sort of made your way into like the sex positive world and talking about like the culture of polyamory and things like that. If you feel like that was always kind of in you, or if there was like a turning point.
Oh, it was definitely, like being non-monogamous was always in me. In high school, I dated multiple people at a time. But we just, didn't have a name for it, right? Like nobody called it, and anything like that would be, it was like white hippie people on real sex.
God.
Oh,
the only
solid.
time you saw that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
And but when I met my ex, I think it was I just felt like, oh, I'm supposed to be like, I'm slutty because I'm just waiting to fall in love and I haven't fallen in love. And when I met him, I was goo goo gaga like immediately and like set out to make him mine. And like when I did, I didn't think about anybody else. And so I was like, oh, this is what has been happening. And then after a while, it was like, oh, I'm not being who I'm supposed to be because I'm just not happy and I'm not. And it wasn't just about sex. It was just about like, I like people.
Yeah.
And I like getting to know people in an intimate way that a lot of people in monogamous relationships will be like, that's cheating.
Yeah, that's a boundary.
It's not about sex. Right. But like sitting knee to knee and having like in-depth, deep conversation with people is one of my favorite fucking things. You know, people who are fucking monogamous are always like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, I can do what the fuck I want. But if you feel like that's cheating, okay. Yeah, I kind of, so like all of that, came to it in the worst. I mean, I'm gonna say like it was the worst way. Like I think I've always been sex positive, very into like I'm self-taught, read everything I could ever get my hands on, mostly just because it was interesting, and I had gone through like trauma stuff as a kid, and so one of the directions you go is hypersexuality, and hypersexuality doesn't necessarily mean you go fuck a bunch of people. It means you become hyper curious about sex, and so I was that kid who was like stealing the Cosmo that had a naked Sylvester Stallone in it.
Well, you taught me something new today.
Oh yeah, back in the day.
I've never heard of that either.
Oh yeah,
it
there's
doesn't
like
surprise me in any way, but
right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was like I started masturbating shortly after like my first like childhood sexual assault, because you learn about your body being able to feel good, and then I remember like sitting on a ball and like, this feels, I like this. And like, oh, I think I just had I didn't know it was an orgasm, but I was like, that was awesome. We're going to keep doing this all the time.
Yeah.
So like, I've always been super curious and very into it, and like would sneak dime store, like the smut magazine, like the little smut paperback novel. And that's always been a thing for me. And I never saw anything wrong. And I'm like, why won't you just let me have this stuff? And I was a kid who went to school and was like, so do you call it a cunt? Because I heard somebody say this. I'm taking an informal poll. And I tried to talk, and I had found like my grandpa's porn and tried to get people to bring porn to school. I was like, let's compare porn. Do you also have access to porn? That was me as a kid. And in high school,
interesting, the focus groups that you created for it.
I know, I was that kid because I was like, other people have to be, this can't just be me, right? Like, I'm like, other kids, you gotta know where this stuff is in your house, right? And then as a teen in New York, like we were having sex parties, which now I know is weird. Apparently, no, other people weren't having high school sex parties, but we would go to like a friend's house on half days and watch like Angelina Jolie movies. And there was like one porn we all watched, the Houston 500, and we would just hang out and eat snacks and talk and watch porn and like make out and sometimes start doing things. And some people had sex and some people just did stuff, and nobody pressured anybody to do anything. And yeah, that was
my dream childhood. That was all I wanted.
Yeah. And I went to a really progressive high school. Like I came out as bi in high school, and a lot of kids were openly gay in my high school. And we talk about this all the time, but like we didn't have people bullying people because of their sexual identity back in the day. It was like more people fighting over stupid shit, but not because you looked a certain way or you were gay. Like also there were enough of us to like take you down if you tried that shit. Like it wasn't happening. And so carrying that into adulthood and then ending up in a monogamous relationship, and I'm like, how do I get, like, I'm missing all this stuff. So then I found Twitter. And Twitter was like the Wild West in like 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
You could like, I mean, you can still put nudity on Twitter, but it was different. Like there was Twitter After Dark, and people would like get really sultry, and people were literally fuck on your timeline. Like people would go back and forth talking about what they were doing to each other.
Wow.
And like, I'm caressing your face. And I'm fucking, I can, like people would do that.
Like we used to do in Yahoo chat rooms?
Yes, but they would do it on Twitter at night. Yeah,
I have no knowledge.
My mind is blown.
I also only started using Twitter like 4 years ago. So
Well, I started it and I just started tweeting microerotica. So I just started telling stories about stuff, my past sexual escapades, and like some things were fiction, and I would like just tell little, and there were a couple accounts that did that would like say like do stories, like hot erotic stories, but like tweet them out bit by bit. And so I would just come on and say it's story time. Yeah. They were a lot more prevalent back in the day. And so I did that. And then that turned into, I started making friends, and then some people were like, oh, you should make this a blog. So it was a blog on Tumblr for a while. And then I just started talking about general sex ed stuff. And I think, and sharing pictures, most of my followers come from Titty Tuesdays. And my joke is always that they came for the titties, they stay for the knowledge. I don't really post nudes anymore on Twitter because it's a lot harder to do things and not lose your account than it was back then. But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Holy
But
shit, I can't believe that forewent me. I've been on Twitter since 2009 and I hadn't seen shit.
What? What's going on? But Titty Tuesday was a big, because it was a thing to see like a different body. And I would get messages from people like, oh, wow, like I love your body and you put stuff. And I think that also helped my self-esteem in a way. And like, I do count, like, I'm like, you do sometimes need to see yourself through other people's eyes.
Yeah.
Our eyes are fucking toxic as fuck sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you have a really bad view of yourself, it doesn't matter what you look like. Like, I remember thinking I was fat in high school, and I look back at pictures and I'm like, I was so thin.
So thin.
So fucking thin. I was in like a size 14. I know. I was so like I had a jawline. Like I was so thin. But so having people just and then all types of people, not just men, but women, everyone, it was just nice. And it made me realize like, oh, maybe all this shit I hate about myself is just me. Like I'm not seeing things right. Yeah. And then I started dabbling into kink. I met a couple doms online, and that really, like my first dom really fucked up my perception of myself in a good way. Like he required that I send him nude photos of me every day. So it was a nude photo and then a photo of me in my outfit of the day.
This is like a hot version of Nexium.
Right. Yeah. I was just like, what are you going to do? And it was, but I remember the first picture, like it took me forever and I was crying. And like when I sent it, you could tell I had been crying. And he's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I just don't want you to see me like this. And he's like, I wouldn't ask you for it if I didn't want to see it. And like, you don't get to tell me that you don't, how I feel about like your body.
That's good
like,
care.
Yeah. And like by the end of our time together, like he's like, I want to send you a present. I'm like, okay. He sent me this picture and it was side by side. My first picture and my last picture. In my first picture, I'm like slumped over. You could tell I've been crying. Like I just look miserable. And my second picture is like my hands are on my hips, my hips just cocked to the side, and I'm like smiling and he's like, look, you're like a completely different person. And I'm like, yeah, because I can see what you see. Like I don't look in the mirror and go, this is disgusting. Like I'm like, oh, there might be stuff I don't like, but I'm like, all in all, I like as a package, we're nice. We have a nice time.
Yes. I love that.
That's awesome.
And then that just started turning into, I don't know. Then it's so weird because it's hard to tell people how I did it. But like I started hosting shows with Sweet Lorraine.
Oh, right.
During this time. Yeah. So I was hosting burlesque shows for her and then doing all this stuff on Twitter, and then the following was really big, and then people kept asking me like, what are you going to do with this? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. And then I started going to like sex ed conferences and meeting people, and I'm like, okay, how do I like squish everything I like into a thing? And that's how like Sex Ed a Go-Go came about. Also, it was like, how do I squish my inordinate knowledge about sex? That was also Lorraine, because we were at a party, and at the end of every party, people would always ask questions. Like, oh, let me show you the stuff I got in my sex box, and oh, go to this store. And she's like, you need to do this for other people. You're really smart, and you know a lot of shit. And I'm like, but nobody wants. Like, who's gonna come watch that, right? Like, who's gonna come see this as a show? And then after going to the conferences and talking to people and like getting some like inspiration, like it turned into Sex Ed a Go-Go, and then that started turning. I think it was more like things just start leading to other things. Like to me teaching, I started working at the sex shop, so I started teaching workshops, and things start rolling, and then I'm teaching at conferences, and then things start rolling, and then I'm getting invited to like speak at colleges, and it's like things keep rolling.
Yeah. And then I'm shopping for something on She Vibe, and I see like a trading card of Dirty Lola as like a superhero.
Oh, awesome. We love She
They're
Vibe.
great. They're so great. And I love those sex ed hero trading cards that they made for everybody.
That's so rad.
I love how well they capture everybody's thing.
They're just cute.
So good. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Sex Ed a Go-Go was really, really fun. It was it always taped live?
It was
a podcast.
Not in the very, very beginning. Yeah. Like that, the podcast started for like maybe a year and a half in.
Okay.
Yeah. But I stopped like, this is so much.
It was a lot. I was very impressed. But it was at Otto's Shrunken Head. Have you been there?
Never been, but
Okay.
I know of it.
Yeah. So it's a cozy space. And you would have panelists and you would have somebody doing go-go and like the in-betweens and then do Q&As.
Fun.
Yeah.
So people could like anonymously, I think, ask any like specific sex questions.
But
amazing. Like that old show with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, but way better.
Kind of, but better, not less misogynistic.
No, enormously.
Yeah. And like we were doing it up until like I had plans for it for 2020. And then 2020 happened. And then it didn't feel right. I like sat with it and like, can I do this online? Do I want to do this online? Like I was struggling. I taught throughout online and that was really hard to find my like niche and how to make it feel good so that I could teach. And I'm like, I just don't want to do that with the show. It's not going to feel right.
Yeah.
With everybody in a different room and the audience in a different room. So I just didn't do it. And like now 2021 has been like, do we do it live? What do I do? So at some point I want to bring it back. It's definitely gonna be 2022, but I'll see how
I understand though. Producing stuff is a real pain in the butt. It's not thankless, but it is like a lot.
Almost thankless.
It's thankless. I mean, and I want to I would like to plan for like 4 shows for the I am not gonna do
manageable. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So I can work on that while over the winter holiday, find a place to do it.
Do you have?
I've been trying to.
Do you have any, I don't know, like sex ed role models or like people who you're specifically like, these people are doing a great job in their field?
Yeah. Well, I always loved Ducky Doolittle. And like Ducky really, for me, pinged in the beginning because she didn't go to college either. She doesn't have a college degree for what she does. She lived this super colorful life that was like, painted heavily by a lot of trauma, but still this bubbly, amazing, smart as fuck person. And, just I love listening to her talk about sex. And she really did it in the way like I like to teach. I really modeled like how I teach after the way she teaches, which is meeting people where they are. And like not everything, like you're going to talk about some science, but you're not going to make everything so academic where people feel like they can't mesh with you. And I always say like I am not a statistics person. Do not ask me statistics. I don't fucking know numbers. Like I don't know.
Right.
I don't know percentages. I know it's a lot. Like that's what I know.
Right.
But but also, just making people feel like seen is a huge part. And she did that for me, especially like coming in and having a lot of imposter syndrome of like, I don't have a college degree. Like I have a high school and some college, and my some college is scattered around the many different things I've done in my life. And go, I'm gonna take a class on this. Like I've done everything. So I really love Dr. Ruth, because she's just the OG, and that's who like I think all of us grew up watching. And I just remember being like, I love this fucking lady. Like she would just be on TV talking about a dick. And nobody blinks, and it's just like somebody's grandma back in the day. You're like, okay.
Yep.
Yep. Like, oh my goodness. And then, now, I mean, I've just met so many people who do this work. Like, even people who are like, maybe we came up together, but so many the ways people in which people do this work that is so vastly different. And I love it because if you don't click with me, there's 50 other people that you can click with in some way, and how they teach and like that, the wonderful women of Afrosexology, and they were doing like a twerk sexology class, but it was like, people were like so racy, but I'm like, it's getting people to reconnect with their bodies, and especially like Black women to like reconnect with their sexuality and things. I'm always in awe, which is also part of why I started doing this, was because I was meeting all these people and nobody knew who the fuck they were. And I'm like, why don't you know who Ducky is? Have you not heard of like Jet Setting Jasmine and King Noir? Like, what the fuck? What do you mean? And so part of doing this was also for Sex at a Go-Go was introducing new people to the audience. Like, get to know these people, fan out over them, like go follow their work. Because everybody's doing stuff like amazing things. There's the sea of sex ed, especially for adults right now, is so vast. It makes me happy, and there's so many new people coming up, and it's lovely to see that, like, that they also have choices that we didn't have. Like, when I got into this, there was nowhere to go take a class. Like, there was nowhere to get certified for sex ed. It was, your choices were, there's a thing out in San Francisco, but you have to basically live there because it's like every other week for 3 months.
Wow.
So unless you're living there,
oh my gosh,
it's every other weekend for 3, right? And then there was Widener, but you have to have a bachelor's degree to take their sex ed, right? So it was like, okay, for a person who has a high school education and a working knowledge of sex, where could I go, like, get stuff? And I just was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep doing my shit and teaching myself and doing stuff. But now there's so many places to point people. I mean, now I teach. It's so funny because people are like, you're not certified. I'm like, no, but I teach for a certification program, so I think that counts. Like, I can teach other people. I think I'm fine not having the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like,
God.
So, but it makes me happy that this is people are seeing it as a viable career path. Some colleges are now, there's a college in Texas, and I think there's something in the Midwest that they're making it a track now as part of, because before you could never be sex education wasn't a track. It was like you were a therapist or you did something in sexual health.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like you did something like that, and then you would then veer off and do whatever, but now they're making it a track that people can actually go to college for.
That's great.
Yeah.
There is a book that Ijeoma Oluo put up an Instagram post about, and it's an advanced reader copy, but it's by author Lori Penny, and you can't tell that the title of the book is just Sexual Revolution because there's giant text leading up to it that is like the intro. This is a story about how modern masculinity is killing the world and how feminism can save it. It's a story about sex and power and trauma and resistance and persistence. And at the heart of that story is one simple idea. We are in the middle of a sexual revolution, modern fascism, and the feminist fight back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which, I love that that's the lens. Yeah.
Well, and I think because it's also... I've been having this conversation more with people, but I feel like even though you don't want to think about it, cis men need a lot of care and they haven't been getting it. And when I say care, it's like we don't allow them to talk about their trauma. We don't give them space, and we get mad at them and tell them they're taking up space when they talk about being sexually assaulted or having things happen to them. We don't make room for them to, and when I say, and I don't mean like the actually. What I mean is when there are people who are like, hi, I would like to learn, we really shove those people away. And when there are people who are like, I want to understand more about myself, we don't make spaces for them. We don't have spaces for them. And so like part of I think feminism is saying like we have to make spaces for the actual good guys, for the people that are out there who are hurting and who are on our side, right? And like who we can't keep shoving away and trying to shove into a box with all the other toxic cis dudes. And because what happens is we make some of those people turn toxic because they're like, I don't have a way to go. And I know like a lot of people will get mad about that, and I know a lot of people get like very up in arms, and it's like, no, I'm not saying you have to coddle men.
Oh, it doesn't have to be like top priority on every meeting every lady meeting that we have.
Right. I know. But like, there are no spaces just for them to show up. And
so when we get mad that they're only learning things from porn, and it's like,
right.
But like there needs to be like, and I feel I don't feel like they should be, I don't like the ones who are like, well, if we got to come to the women's only spaces, I'm like, no, those still get to exist because we need them to feel safe.
Right.
But we can make this men's only space where we have like people willing to talk to you, to like have conversation with you, and like but when you really like, if you want to troll, you can leave. We're not, but like I just the Me Too stuff and seeing how many people got mad that men were speaking up and saying they were harmed. And that just broke my heart because I was like, this doesn't make allies. This makes people that go, your movement doesn't even, you want me to support you, but you don't even support me in any way, shape, or form being a part of this. And it's like, you know, also that it's toxic masculinity is hurting men too.
Oh, yes. This awful soup hurts all of us. And the fact that they then punch down double sucks, but like there is no healing us if there's no healing them.
Right. Or, and like even starting like my nephew and like every time somebody tells him to stop crying, I'm like, stop fucking telling him to stop crying. This is why kids get guns and shoot up schools. And my sister looked at me and I'm like, listen, you have to let him cry. Like you have to let him be sensitive. He, you know, like he can learn like maybe sometimes you're being overly emotional about certain things and how to, you know, temper yourself, but let him be emotional. Yeah. Well, do you want him to punch a wall? Right? Or do you want him to cry because he's frustrated? Yeah. And then do you want to talk to him about that frustration instead of making him build it up where he feels like I can't even talk about it, so I'm just going to go do reckless, harmful shit. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it's for the babies too. Like if nothing else, I'm like, I have a nephew who I refuse to let get sucked into the vacuum of what masculinity is. And, you know, and he plays football. And when he does that, he cries. And I'm like, he's already playing football. Let the motherfucker cry if he wants to.
Absolutely. Like, he needs to cry. He needs to cry. Let him
be frustrated and cry. It's fine.
I love that.
Okay. You were fantastic. This has been an absolutely delightful and insightful conversation. And I miss you. And it's just been such a joy.
This is so great. I know, like before all of this mess, every time you had a show, I'm like, I'm going to go to Jersey City. And it just never.
Don't worry. We have no expectations of that from New Yorkers. No. Really,
we know how it is.
Yeah, we do.
But it's like, I would forget, or I'm like, I really got a plan. Like, this has to be a plan.
Yeah, I get it. That's why I hardly go out to Coney anymore. Because I'm like,
oh God.
Getting home from there.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. It is a whole thing. Like I could get to Atlantic City more easily and probably more quickly.
Yeah, I live down there. I know. I mean, it's not hard getting into the city, but like if you live beyond the city, if you live in Queens, I mean, it's a little harder. Yeah.
Right.
Is there anything specific that you are plugging right now? Any talks or appearances or?
You can, what am I doing? What's happening? Wait, what is happening?
We don't know either.
Well, if you look out for me on HBO in December, if everything goes right, there's going to be a show. I don't know if I can say I know it's so silly. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, but there's a show based off of a New York Magazine article, like a column that they're turning into a show, that they've turned into a show that I've been filming for like the last few weeks actually. And it's a mix of diaries and being filmed. And so, and it's supposed to premiere the first Friday in December, and it's going to be like every Friday.
Is it nonfiction then?
It's a docu-series.
Oh, so rad. Okay, guys, keep your eyes on your HBO apps.
Yeah, because I know. I've been like, we're going to talk about it. And they're like, not yet. I'm like, fine. But I'm like, but it's happening. They're like, it's happening. I'm like, okay.
I would make a Google alert for that and see when anybody talks about it the first time. And then you're like, okay, off to the races.
And as soon as I can talk about it, I'll be posting. Like when I can say the name of it and stuff, I will.
For sure.
And I know you're Dirty Lola on Twitter. I think the same on Instagram. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Terrific.
Yeah. All right. Amazing.
Yeah. Follow me there. Instagram is probably where you'll see where I'm popping up if I'm doing a class or doing something online. It'll be there. That's
super
what's going on.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And this has been so awesome.
Oh, fuck buddies, thank you for listening.
Yeah, fuck buddies. Go find Lola. Go learn some beautiful stuff about your body and your pleasure.
And other people's bodies.
And other people's bodies and pleasures. And how ultimately we should just let ourselves feel all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
Amazing.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.